Last year, Spokane voters overwhelmingly passed a proposition making all city negotiations with its unions open to the public. Well, one of those unions is the Police Guild, and their contract is up for a vote on Monday. 13 weeks and counting. That's how long hundreds, if not thousands of people have been waiting for unemployment benefits here in Washington state. And in weather, we're tracking a cool, wet weekend with a chance of some thunderstorms.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here for KREM 2 News First at 6. I'm Whitney Ward at home. Mark Hanrahan is off tonight, and there Tom Sherry is at the KREM 2 studios this evening. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Whitney. How are you? Let's get right to the news. Last year, Spokane voters overwhelmingly passed a proposition making all city negotiations with its unions open to the public. Well, one of those unions is the Police Guild, and their contract is up for a vote on Monday. Our political reporter Casey Decker joins us now. Casey, these negotiations with the union, were they open to the public?
No, they weren't, Tom, and the reason the city gave for that was that the negotiations began before the ballot measure was passed. Now, one of the foremost backers of that measure, now council member Michael Cathcart, he says he rejects that argument. No such exceptions were made in the measure, but he does accept that there may be some wiggle room in the sense that the actual negotiation phase was already wrapped up. Regardless, Cathcart feels that had the negotiations been more transparent, they would have been faster and more productive.
I really honestly believe that the negotiations would not have taken 3.5 years. I think had they been public from day one, I think the community support for the independent oversight would have been strong enough that I think these negotiations would have wrapped up sooner. I think the Guild would have had an opportunity to hear more directly from folks in the community, just because they were able to observe those negotiations.
Now, accountability, of course, is a big point of contention in this contract. Many of the thousands of people protesting in Spokane are calling for more and stronger police oversight. And they believe the provisions in the contract up right now don't go far enough. But if this contract passes on Monday, they'll still need to start working on a new negotiation and a new contract almost immediately. And those negotiations, as it stands, are expected to be public. Tom?
Thank you, Casey. A demonstration honoring George Floyd's last living moments just wrapped up outside of Spokane City Hall. KREM 2's Brandon Jones has details on what took place.
For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, several protesters gathered right here outside of City Hall, laid down on the ground with their hands behind their back to honor George Floyd. It was a small gathering in terms of the huge protests we've seen over the last 2 weekends, but there were some powerful moments and emotions were clearly visible.
I can't move.
I can't move. Protesters that I got a chance to speak with told me they're ready to commit the rest of their lives to fighting injustice in the country. That includes a push towards defunding law enforcement and investing money into the community in hopes of creating stronger bonds between officers and citizens.
So to think that 3 men would have been sitting on top of me, like we're sitting on top of George Floyd, is quite unfathomable.
I've had to face racism, my brothers and sisters have, and so until some big change happens, I'll keep fighting.
Occupy Spokane organized the gathering we saw here today. In talks with them, I was told this isn't their last push, and they've got several events planned. That includes another protest in the Lilac Bowl this weekend that could draw thousands of people out. City Council President Brianne Beggs also came out to acknowledge protesters. He said they have his support as they continue to fight for change. From City Hall, Brandon Jones, KREM 2 News.
Well, it has been 5 days since protesters forced the city of Seattle to pull its police officers from the East Precinct in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Now, Police Chief Carmen Bess says that she is working on a plan to get her officers back in their building. For more information now, we turn to our Regina On in the newsroom.
Thanks, Tom, for that. Protesters are currently occupying several city blocks in the Capitol Hill neighborhood right now. There are currently no plans to remove them.
Leaving the precinct was not my decision. Ultimately, the city had other plans for the building and relented to severe public pressure.
All eyes are on Seattle and the protesters occupying Capitol Hill in the so-called autonomous zone. Chief Best says there are real challenges to getting the precinct back up and running. That includes talking with designated protesters who can be spoken on behalf of demonstrators. As of now, Best says the protesters are, quote, kind of a leaderless group.
I would love to see this Seattle Police Department be turned into a youth center.
Seattle police report since the East Precinct closed, 911 response times have tripled. Chief Carmen Best says it's taking on average 18 minutes for officers to get to emergency calls, and that is one of the reasons why she wants a precinct reopened. As for more Black Lives Matter protests, that's going to continue this weekend across the country. Organizers are planning a massive march on Washington, D.C. in August for criminal justice reform. Live here in the newsroom tonight, Regina On, back to you, Tom.
New at 6, a United States judge has ordered Seattle police to temporarily stop using tear gas, pepper spray, and flashbang devices to break up peaceful protests. The 2-week order starting today is a victory for groups who say that authorities overreacted to recent demonstrations over police brutality and racial injustice. A Black Lives Matter group sued the Seattle Police Department this week to halt the tactics it has used to break up the largely peaceful protests in recent days. Well, we're talking about wet weather on the way. We went from temperatures hitting 80 yesterday, and now we're looking for temperatures only maybe barely hitting 60 degrees. Take a look at the latest Doppler radar, and you can see we've got some shower activity in northern Idaho, but we've got a band of thunderstorms down in areas of north central Oregon that is beginning to move towards us. So we're going to be tracking those throughout the evening hours. Now take a look at the temperatures around the region. We've got temps hitting 73 degrees in Felts Field, 71 in Medical Lake, 71 degrees, as you can see the current temperature in the 9 Mile Falls area. So your weekend weather goes like this, cool and unsettled. Chance of more rain and thunderstorms, especially Saturday morning. Decreasing showers in the afternoon, but a high of only 60 and some wind gusts up to 30 miles per hour. We'll look for a few scattered showers on Sunday as well, with a daytime high expected of 63. Whitney coming up in just about 10 minutes. I'll have a look at your 10-day forecast. Hope you'll stick around for that.
I will absolutely be there, Tom. Thank you very much. And in Idaho, the state is moving to its 4th and final phase of reopening this weekend. It actually officially goes into effect tomorrow. So let's take a look at what exactly that is going to mean for Idaho. Gatherings of 50 or more are now allowed. Theaters, bars, and other venues also allowed to reopen. Large sporting events can operate under limited physical distancing protocols. Work from home recommendations will be lifted, and you can start visiting senior living centers. But even though Idaho is moving on to stage 4, Governor Brad Little says it's not time to forget social distancing measures. And the move into phase 4 will complete the return for all businesses in Idaho, but for business owners in downtown Coeur d'Alene, this brings a huge sense of relief. For months, they have felt the financial burdens of closed shops, many of them managing to make it through online and takeout orders, but now without limitations, they will slowly make their way back to normal.
The community has been super supportive, but it's still been such a challenge, missing out on, sales that we could have gotten, if we would have been open. But, the safety of the community and our employees was the most important thing. So it's just been a crazy ride.
That is the owner of Bean and Pie. She says they'll continue to err on the side of caution as restrictions are eased. So far, they don't have any large events scheduled, and they are encouraging customers who come in to continue practicing social distancing for everyone's safety. New tonight, the Spokane Indians have made the announcement that their baseball season is postponed indefinitely. That announcement was made today alongside league officials. The Northwest League has postponed all of its team seasons now. The Indians were supposed to start their season in 5 days on June 17th, but over the last few months, it was looking less and less like that would happen. The announcement comes after big tensions also in the MLB, as players and owners have not been able to reach an agreement on when to start the season. Well, tonight we continue our spotlight on small businesses, local businesses with Black owners. Tonight.
It got so bad that we finally started driving to Seattle to buy cheesecake.
So if you are a fan of cheesecakes, here is the next place that you will definitely want to visit. Also, we love continuing to highlight our local seniors, so here is a big shout out to Josh Heckman, a senior at Lewis and Clark High School. Josh is the ASB president there at Lewis and Clark and the valedictorian. He'll be attending Stanford in the fall. Well done, Josh. Hey, if you missed our senior special last night, you can still check it out on our KREM 2 YouTube page. There is a whole hour of great moments celebrating this class of 2020.